just getting everything posted here, and we will start culling photos and looking at some good bull from Cut 5, October 3rd and 4th, 2020. And we're actually going to start with a little, um, maybe we can call it a confession. I don't know. We'll see here when I get all this posted and we're live to everybody. There we go. We are posted to Twitter. Let's post to Facebook. Twitter at Dion C Gallery. Facebook, Dion C Gallery. Follow there. These days, the entire reason why I'm on those two mediums is purely for Bonfire stuff. I cannot recommend enough not being on social media these days. But that is part of how we get the word out. So there we go. Again, we are going to be focusing on the 3rd and 4th, but we're going to take quickly a little foray into something that happened on the 27th. And as weird as this is going to be, it is weird for me to look at now, and I did it. This did actually turn into to be one of the most. I'm going to remember this exercise for a very long time. So going back to the 27th, we were at stack site doing the stack site prep that Bonfire is doing now with recalling that there are split double cuts for the entire season, meaning half of the crews come out on Saturday, half are out on Sunday. Very recently, they started upping the intensity there with half of the crews go out to the woods on Saturday, and then the next day, whoever was in the woods goes to stack site on Sunday. Meanwhile, the people who were at stack site on Sunday or on Saturday go out to the woods on Sunday. So in other words, everybody is working every day of the weekend, and those who are out at stack site are preparing stack site, getting the logs sorted, and we looked at a couple of what sorting the logs looks like. We sort the logs into the lengths and mark them with spray paint for the tier that the log is estimated to go on after doing some tape measuring and whatnot. Tape measuring like this. So this was Hart and Leggett working together on the unload and the measuring. So in any event, that's where we were at. So what I'm beating around the bush and taking my time to get to is I was over here. I was taking pictures from a distance. I was waiting for a truck to get in. I had gotten word that a truck was inbound from cut site, and it was bringing out some more logs to be unloaded. And so I was out in the area that the truck was expected to be, and I wanted to get the truck coming in. I wanted to get people running to the truck, people pulling the logs off the truck, tying the ropes to the truck sticks for pulling the truck sticks off, and the logs rolling off, and all of the stuff that happens when a truck full of logs comes in. So I was there to shoot that, and while I was in that area here, I'm zoomed in as far as I can zoom across one over here into this direction to the left of frame, way over to the left of frame, is one of the log fields, um, full of skids of logs that are accumulating. Well, this is way out in the distance. Um, Another field of skids, and they're um, moving this log here. So I'm shooting across to that, and then behind me, for some reason, I turned around, and there's this tree that I love to see it stack towards the end of stack, because something about the that environment, that area towards the end of stack, the nights you get the low mist moving in, the fog, the haze, you get the clouds of low-lying layers of smoke from the stack fires and everything, and the lights hitting those, and it's just in the distance there's stack, and it's beautiful, and to see that with uh, this tree here silhouetted against that, I just really enjoy this tree. And so I turned around and looked at it, and by the time stack rolls around and you get to that part of stack where you get that neat light and the smoke and the haze and the humidity and all these things, um, there's uh, the leaves are all gone at that point, and now, obviously there's leaves on this. So when I turned around, I saw this, see that little thing? The leaves were flying off this tree. So I turned around and I just popped off a few shots. The leaves flying off this tree, and this does not. I mean, there's what do we see here? One or two leaves, and so obviously I didn't get the leaves flying off this tree. At one point there was almost a cloud of leaves coming off this tree, and obviously in none of these four shots did I get it, and so at this point I'm frustrated. But there's stuff going on behind me. There's Hart is moving logs and um, sorting and everything. But there's this kind of break where they've got the sorting done that they need. The truck is almost there. Everybody, supposedly the truck is almost there, and everybody can go back to taking a breath and getting ready for this truck. So I go out to this tree again because I'm gonna figure out. I want to get the leaves flying off this tree, and it is. Let me see the time here. It is 11:03. 11:03 a.m. when I first turn around and start sizing up this deal, and I'm just farting around here trying to figure out how I want to frame this tree. I'm knowing that none of what I'm getting here is anything I'm going to use. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to frame, how I'm going to compose this shot. Of course, all of my exposures on those earlier ones are way off. I mean, this exposure is not much better, but I've started to kind of think that, okay, I can open up all this space over here to the left, and the leaves will fill that up. In any event, I'm continuing to play with this, trying to get these leaves coming off. And what ends up happening is, so for anybody who was out there, if you looked over and you saw for 1 hour, I did not realize that this is how long I was out there. But I came back and I looked at these photos, and I got curious the other day before we started finishing that up and developing those photos. I thought, well, how long was I at that tree? An hour. An entire hour waiting for the truck to show up and completely engrossed in this tree and trying to figure out how to illustrate correctly the leaves coming off of this tree and it turning into fall. So as I said, this was a weird digression. This was a completely weird digression, but I loved it. It was so great. I got completely lost in trying to figure this tree out and trying to figure out illustrating the fall coming, bonfire season coming. Um, and I'm not going to bore you with the hundreds of frames that I shot trying to get this. And I mean, even this is almost starting to get to what I'm trying to get here, just a lone leaf. The leaf, of course, is not in any kind of focus to make the point. Um, but an hour, a total hour, and I think I was in 3 or 4 different positions. So anybody who looked over and said, "Hey, wait, isn't he supposed to be taking pictures of Bonfire? What in the hell is he doing?" This was it. See, here's another one. So close. So close. So at a certain point, I went out and I laid down in the grass. And I started by sitting in the grass, and I eventually laid down in the grass. And I went to manual focus, and I kind of dialed in a range in front of me that I was going to hope a leaf crossed, uh, and that way I wouldn't have to find a leaf and try and stay in focus on it from the tree all the way to me. That wouldn't have worked. So I picked a range of about 2 feet in front of me. That on that plane, any leaf that crossed that plane, if I got the shot in time, would be in focus. And so I practiced manual. I practiced putting myself in the right position. I practiced patience. I practiced stillness, and um, yeah, mostly practiced patience. And when it was all said and done, an entire hour, and on further review, I don't think I got a single shot out of it. But for those of you who looked over and were wondering what that idiot was doing in the grass, this is what I was doing in the grass. Trying, yeah. So I'm gonna in my life, I am going to revisit this sort of approach many, many times. I didn't turn into anything. Everything did not work, but I enjoyed the process. So that was that. Anyway, that's my confession. That's my idiot confession of what I was doing like an idiot for an hour. So on to what you came here for. This is October 3rd and 4th. Cut 5. The previous week we got 1 day of cut in the books. And it's as I mentioned last week when we were looking at those photos, that's the weekend every year where I'm not out there shooting photos. It's family birthday, and so I might get 1 day that weekend, and I got 1 day this year. But we do have another split double on the 3rd and 4th, and I was able to make it out for both. So we've got I'm beginning to see a pattern here. We get 15 to 1600 frames on these double cut weekends. I find that I'm shooting more photos, even though um, I'm not out there every day as much as I generally am. Um, in standard seasons, if I've only got 1 day of cut, um, in previous seasons, it's only a Sunday cut, then I'm usually going to be out there from 8 until 4, or almost that much. Now it's double cuts in the woods, Saturday and Sunday both. I find myself, I might only be out there 3 or 4 hours, but I end up shooting twice as many photos on both of those days. And I think it's because I can take my time and focus more. I can spend more time in some woods, not feeling like all right, I've got to get every crew at in the morning, and then I've got to get every crew cutting down their first tree, and then I've got to get every crew dicking and topping their first tree, and and that kind of urgency and whatnot that keeps me moving and leaves me less time to actually shoot. So I'm speculating as to why there's so many more photos this year. Um, and I'm also learning to uh, uh, play around more and make more mistakes and be okay with it. So in any event, we've got Neely here doing their morning stretches, and this was something that I was standing there, and um, I am zoomed here. I'm not right next to his face, but we have a junior red pot who came up and had something very important to say, and 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 I don't know, I for some reason I thought that was interesting, and unmasked junior red pot for a moment, communicating something very important. Um, so I got that. We have Hart checking in. Um, FHK, Neely, they can't all be winners. This is obviously a messed up shot. Not good. Clearly not a lot of thought turning and just throwing down the hammer there and taking a picture. Um, Again, we've got the call for the yellow pots and butt pots. Um, little graininess there. I was not expecting this call. Actually, this happened very quickly. Um, so I had wanted to be in a different position for the yellow pots and butt pots on this day, and I I wasn't. So I shot what I had. Um, and again, the going into the woods. Next week, this coming week, I am gonna I have a couple ideas for something I want to try on after they call for yellow pots and butt pots, so that I'm not. Um, if this is the kind of shot that you want to take at this time in the morning, you can't be as far away as I was for this, because being this far away, I had to zoom in all the way. I use a 28-300, and at this distance, I think I'm at 5.6 or something. Um, and what I'm getting at is the amount of light that I have available is very limited when I'm zooming in to get something that I'm not close to and trying to make it look close, and by limiting my light, the only recourse that I have, um, that's readily available, is to slow down my shutter. And when I do that, then you get some shaking and you get the movement. And so next week when I try these couple other things that I have in mind for shooting the yellow pots and the jerp, I am going to have to move and be very cognizant about getting to where I want to be earlier. I think that I've gotten a little bit accustomed, as have a few of the yellow pots, to previous years, and and sometimes the yellow pots and butt pots were called. It felt like a little bit later, and now they're calling them earlier, and so I've just got to be on my toes like the rest of them are. So this I don't. I'm not actually going to use these, but this was something that the day before, I think it was the day, yeah, it was the day before. This is a Saturday, so on the Friday before, I was explaining to my daughter on the way to school. I was dropping her off, and we saw the moon and how big it was, and we were talking about how big it looked, and so I explained to her the optical illusion that happens, that the moon with your naked eye looks much bigger than it does when you take a photo of it. And so you can look at it and then you take a photo and the photo looks nothing like what you saw with your eyes. And having that in mind, I just took a few different shots of the moon that she and I looked at later to kind of illustrate the optical illusion that the moon looks bigger the closer it is to um, to the things that trick our mind, the trees, the antennas, and all these things. So um, I didn't actually intend to use any of these photos, but these are just a few that that I used to help explain to my daughter the frustration of shooting a big moon, and you think you've got this most beautiful moon shot in the world, and then you take it, and the moon is completely not impressive in a photo. Um, so anyway, so the yellow pus now, we've got them running out of the woods, and uh, what happens is after the junior red pot takes the yellows into the woods, shows them around, lets them know the expectations for the day, for the weekend. And then when he's finished talking, he just says, go. Essentially, just go. And then everybody, all the yellows, they run out back to their crews. And there's a certain dignity and pride with being the first yellow back to your crew, and the first yellow that has your crew motivated and ready to get out into the woods. And this is not a short run. They're coming from a ways back in the woods, uh, but it's kind of the first. I don't know. I really enjoy the yellow pots running back, because to me, I feel like it's the first indication of how the day and how the weekend is going to go. Um, what crew has got the yellow pot that is most eager and most motivated to get back out into the woods? And the crews notice this. They notice when their yellow pot is the one that is doing his or her damnedest to get back first, because they are that motivated to get out into the woods. Um, so one of these, I know I felt good about one of these, and there are many in this series here. So I'm just going to flag one and come back and make sure again I've picked the right one. But I am seeing that I'm reassured that my exposures are what I wanted, and so I know that I'm going to be able to get one of these shots out of it. Um, so moving on, we got Neely now going into their woods. Neely's got a big crew this year. They've got a very big crew. They pull out a lot of people, and they get a lot of work done. I've been very impressed with Neely this year. Um, uh, a lot of folks, and one of the things that's key that um, that I think when you've built it, you understand and you appreciate and you recognize it. But um, if you haven't, you might not expect how important this is. But the former students coming back, um, be it many years back or recently former students, um, and also people who were previously in leadership who are still students of Texas A&M, but they're no longer leadership of their crew. They've already passed that down, whatever. That having upperclassmen and and past leadership around just to be there and help out and lend some motivation, some guidance, loosen things up a little bit. Um, it's so huge to a crew. It really helps bring people out. It helps keep people out, and it makes for crews that get very, very big and bigger than just, oh, they've got 10 old people that come out all the time. It's it that effect is bigger than the number of former participants, former students, former leaders that are coming out. It's a really, really huge benefit to the crews. And Neely has got a really great thing going as far as their former leadership and their former upperclassmen, um, and 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 current upperclassmen that are continuing to come out and help their crew out, and that's where you see a crew like Neely getting so big. The only thing about upperclassmen coming out is that you have to control your upperclassmen, and that's a whole different thing. But Neely's been doing pretty good with that too. So Neely's heading out into the woods. Here we have Kruger again, and their axe box, their gigantic axe box. And again, Kruger, it bears mentioning, Kruger has also got a very good crew this year, a sizable crew. And what I'm trying to line up here, if I'm remembering correctly, if I'm remembering this series correctly, what I was trying to do was get these different crews, because as I mentioned before, because of the way that things are working this year, that they are seriesing, they are making the crews depart into the woods in groups, in separate groups that are socially distanced and whatnot. We haven't had really that big mass shot of lots of people marching out into the woods at one time, and we're not going to get that shot this year because of the protocols that are in place. But I'm still trying, yeah, and I'm confirming here what this day that I was trying to get this shot. I'm trying to get an angle so that I can get a better picture, display a better picture of how many people are going out on a day, and to be able to do that with these crews being in separate chunks. This was my attempt at that, and so really all I was able to get in frame that illustrated it was maybe 2 or 3 crews. But I got close. I'm gonna go back and review. I'm gonna go back and review and see if these did do it. And again, like I've said, part of reviewing these photos is, yes, to find the photos that worked from that weekend. But the other part is to sometimes it's like a visual notepad to record an idea and to follow up on it later. So I'm going to go back and I've flagged one of these photos. I'm going to go back and look at this group and see if any of these photos actually kind of fulfilled the idea that I had in mind. And if they didn't, then this is my visual note and reminder for next week to try this again. Here's another one for our beautiful blue tractor that we're getting used, and every now and then if I see it and I've got a moment and it looks nice, I do take another picture of this tractor. Again, I'm going to be getting a few of these photos to the generous donor of the tractor. So I have heard that they appreciate photos of their contribution, and so this is just my way of saying thank you, is to make sure that I got a few photos for them. And the sun was coming up very nicely and just kind of bathing that beautiful blue tractor. So we got a couple of those. There was cool light on the red pot log. I've shot the red pot log before, but I'm gonna shoot it a few times, especially when the light is doing the number that it's doing on this morning. So we have we're in FHK woods to start with, the typical beginning of the morning brush clearing. We see the stripes are still on the legs, which is good to see. The virgin stripes, as as we call them, for those people who have their first year out at Bonfire. Um, Following this same individual, carrying this sizable hunk of yopon over to the brush pile there. Starting with a small tree, downswinging actually on a small tree. Now that I'm seeing this, there was I don't know. This is about 20 minutes into the day, and I don't believe that they cut this tree down in 20 minutes. So this may be a tree that was already laying down when I got back there. There was some. I'm really looking forward um, uh, to these shots. The light that was available in this section of the woods and some of the work that they were doing. Um, I'm really looking forward to these, and I hope I don't disappoint anybody, especially myself, in building it up like that. So here he's just topping the tree here at this point. I just got a message in here. I get so distracted. This is what we are witnessing here. This is the process. I look at things, I get distracted. I'm not changing anything for these live streams. This is what's going on. All right, there we go. So, topping a tree here, and this is what I was looking forward to seeing. Here's another tree being topped right now, and 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 I'm sitting on a branch to get this. I'm never gonna take these shots with somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Um, I want to make sure that I've seen somebody do the work before I try and get in on this shot. And I've seen enough people, and I've done enough of the work and everything that I know uh, I know when I can be comfortable getting in on a shot like this. I am zoomed in a little bit, so I'm not as close as the photos may look. Um, but there's um, this was just a cool setup here. Now, what you'll notice here is something that I don't usually do, but I'm feeling really good about what is potentially available here sitting on this thing. And I get to this shot, which is getting close to feeling like I'm going to get kind of the shot I want, and then I noticed that this was I can and I do tend to kind of frame shots with things that are in the foreground, but this was not anything that was going to help me, and so I very very rarely do this, but I did this here. I tore it off. I tore that twig off. I messed with the environment, and I apologize. I rarely ever do that. I'll rarely ever pull something out of the way. If it's there, then it's supposed to be there, and I'll take the picture with it. So when you've cut down a big tree, or any tree actually, you get to your yellow pot crew chief, whoever's in charge at that moment, is going to measure that tree and get the best, longest usable section of that tree figured out, and they'll give someone instructions, cut it at this point. And um, that's what we're doing here. That's what we're seeing here, is the tree being cut at. You kind of can see the fork here in the tree, and so they're cutting the tree here. There's more branching that's going on over here. So this is down swinging to turn this, what was a really great tree, into, I believe they were cutting this down into maybe a second or third tier log. But that's how long it was at the point that they were cutting it here. So I'm going to flag one of those. There were a couple in there that I saw that I felt like were looking pretty good. This is kind of zoomed out a little bit further um, to actually get the human doing the thing. And um, there's a couple in there that I've seen. So I'm going to flag one and come back and look at that. This individual jumped in, and I gave them a couple swings before I hopped out. Again, I try and I haven't seen this individual swing a whole lot, so I hung in for a few swings and then backed off and started taking different shots. They were doing great. They were doing a very fine job downswinging on the tree. It's just if I'm going to be standing in front of an axe, it's definitely got to be in front of somebody that I'm more familiar with their work. It did help though that he had a Fiskars. So if he's got a Fiskars, I can hang out a little bit longer. Um, I feel like a Fiskars is something that is easier to be around from these angles. Now here I'm backed off, and we're just getting um, a couple different views. I've talked smack about the Fiskars before. Don't get me started. If nothing else, if you can say anything good about a Fiskars, it's that they're less scary, I guess, because they're less like an actual real axe. There's a couple good ones in there though, and we'll come back and make sure I pick the right one there. Um, we had a big piece of brush being moved from a distance away. I tried to get that. I don't think that I did, but that's all right. So here's more of that light that I was excited about. There's the sun just starting to peek through to these trees, and the really cool thing that it's always really fun this time of year after this much work has been done and crews really start to click, and they're really figuring things out, and they're efficiently able to execute the work. They're able to delegate the work more effectively, so that they've got the right people doing the right jobs. Everything just starts happening so much quicker, and then you've already got your accumulated work that's already been done. So it's around this time of year that it really feels like, like I said, I was home for a birthday the previous Saturday. I was out at Stack Site on the Sunday. Was what I was able to do the next day then. So I hadn't been out in the woods for a week. I missed a whole week out in the woods. And to come back and watch how opened up it is and how much more sun you can get in the morning because of how many fewer trees there are. This is just a really, really exciting time to be out in the woods. It's really, really cool to watch things come together for everybody. Here's a tree coming down. Pardon me. Here's a tree coming down. I'm caught behind this cedar here. So I wasn't able to get over that to get closer on this tree falling. So I did the best I could from this angle, which was not great. But it's a fair-sized tree. Not still in Kruger. This is the yellow pot just starting a wedge. Um, there were a few crews that had I haven't checked yet. I haven't confirmed, but there was some crazy shirts going on this weekend. I think a couple crews had Hawaiian Day or something like that. I don't know if that's what Kruger's doing here. This is one of Kruger's dads, one of their former crew chiefs, who also became a Red Pot and is now also a former Red Pot, or a dead Red Pot. Jumping in to um, work on this wedge a little bit. Underclassmen looking on. Um, they made a pretty big divot in a pretty short amount of time on this tree. And I was hoping to get some chip shots, but the light was limited from here, so I'm not sure if I was able to get what I was playing with here. I do try and see. I do try and stretch a little bit what I'm able to get with less and less light, and I'm trying here, but uh, it's not it's not great. This is another one of those cases where you want to catch that shot. If this shot is going to work with this limited amount of light, then you're going to have to catch that shot right when the axe is just hitting the tree, when it's starting to decelerate, so that you can have that shutter open for longer and not have as much blur, not have as much motion. If you're going to make it freeze. But if you're going to embrace the motion, and use the motion to kind of tell the story, we've seen a few of them where the motion, you can see here in the bark, the motion isn't just in the axe, the motion is in the actual camera itself as well. That is not clear. That's fuzzy. I moved while I was taking that shot. But this is clearer. There's sharpness there. I'm steady. So the only motion that you're seeing is the motion coming from the axe in the tree. So that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in. Now, this is something that I need to go back and I need to look at the photographic evidence, but at some point people started doing this, using their axe handles to feel out a tree and which way it was going. And I mean, they will get into it, lean into it, rock it, everything. And I feel like that's a newer phenomenon. Um, it started to develop, it started to happen, and so I've captured it. I haven't. Yeah, they're gonna do what they feel comfortable doing, and if it's working for them, then hell, that's what they're gonna do. So I'm gonna take pictures of it, and I'll understand it later, if ever. But the feeling is that in using your axe handle and feeling which way your axe handle falls into the wedge, you can feel the angle of the wedge, and you can also, pulling on it, and you can actually, the axe handle illustrates the turn of the wedge. Is it to the left or to the right, in ways that maybe you can't just tell by looking at. But in any event, that's what they do, and it works for them. So I capture it. Here, moved over to FHK Woods, and this is a shot I like to try and get. I'm happy with that. I'm really, really happy with that. But this shot of going over the inside shoulder to make the axe strike the point of focus, but over the inside shoulder, between the inside shoulder and the tree. That's a shot I like to try and get, but it's a shot that fails so many times because of something like this or this, the body getting in the way. And it's just a matter of positioning, and it's a matter of anticipating. Are they going to come in? Are they going to do a 90? Are they going to do a 45? Are they going to move to the outside or to the inside? Which is actually not that hard to anticipate. If you have a yellow pot or a crew chief who's in front of them saying, give me a 90, give me a 45, work the outside, work the inside, it's easier to anticipate and get in the right position so that you get this instead of that or that. We want this. So that's cool. I'm happy that that one worked out. And working on that, and we're back to, familiar territory of we're trying to get the axe striking, and then you just, sometimes you miss it. Obviously, he's struck the tree already. There's the chips, but you see the chips, but the axe is not touching the tree. That's the axe moving backwards. That one, obviously, that didn't work. That was not a great one. And I'm trying to get that shot again, except this time even tighter, and didn't work out this time. But I did get that one, and I'm really, really happy with that. So this was fun. We got to bag on this guy for a while. FHK was giving each other hell this morning. I mean, they were being rough. I mean, when somebody's swinging on a tree, usually you say things to, quote, motivate them. We're going to visit another crew here in a few minutes, if memory serves, that has a very different way of motivating people who are swinging on a tree. But almost everybody motivates people, almost everybody else but this other crew that we're going to see, motivates people by being just really mean. Just in a funny way, but mean. And so everybody was bagging on him. And so I did too. I couldn't help it. But he had this particular wind-up that was interesting, and also he was swinging 90s the whole time, 90-degree axe strikes the entire time, and that's where you come in on this plane here. This is the flat plane. So you use your 45s to eat into the tree, and you use your 90s to clear what you've chipped and opened up out. And he was doing 90s all day, every day. And so we had some good laughs. But like I said, the way that he winds up to make his swing, his windup is one that opens up his shirt very clearly so that I can read the front of it while he's swinging, which doesn't generally happen with a lot of people's swings. So while people might have been picking to motivate him, right, because it's all love, it's all motivation, I was looking for and hanging around for the shot that opened up that Texas A&M, so we could get the axe and the Texas A&M clearly presented. Dead center with intent on that tree. And I think I'll flag one and we'll come back because there were a couple in there that I saw that could work. They've already gone to the back wedge on this tree. So beginning that, there here the chief jumps in to work on the tree. Nobody's exempt from the picking and the joking and the motivating. No one at all is exempt, including um, including the crew chief. So the crew chief caught more than a little hell too. Um, this is the crew chief. Um, Jumping in on it. I can't remember what we were joking with him about, but he caught hell from the same people that he was giving hell to. Um, we had a good time in FHK Woods for a few minutes. Now where are we at here? Jumping ahead, I believe. Oh yes, we're in Heartwoods. We are in Heartwoods. I was heading to Leggett Woods, and right next to Leggett is Hart, and that's because Leggett cuts under Hart. Hart has got the yellow pot, and uh, so Leggett cuts underneath Hart, and Hart had a tree that arguably could have gone fallen on this wedge. Was cut as the front wedge. It conceivably could have fallen in this direction, but it was a well balanced tree, and B, there was a little bit of a breeze, and then C, it was a little bit that was inclining this tree to fall this way. And so here one of the red pots and brown pots, two who really know what they're doing around trees, came in and broke out the wedge and the chainsaw and forced this tree at the last minute to fall in the right direction. And even with the wedges, it did get kind of hairy for a minute. So I ran over. I didn't have a whole lot of time. I was headed in another direction, and this starts happening. So also, not only am I trying to capture this, but I'm also trying to get myself behind another tree, just to make sure that you know uh, I'm in a safe position wherever this tree decides to fall. That's another thing when taking the photos. Uh, Other folks in different positions are better equipped and aware of what's going on than sometimes I am when I'm zooming in on something. So I need people to be able to worry about themselves and take care of themselves, and I don't need them to have to feel like they gotta pay attention to me and whatever I'm doing. So I do try my best to put myself in good, safe positions so nobody ever has to say, "Hey, like, watch out for that idiot." Um, but they've got it felled uh, right where they wanted it after they used that wedge. And now we're back where I was headed, which is Leggett Woods. And I know I mentioned um, when we were looking at FHK, I mentioned that all the other crews have this way of motivating each other, which is by way of when somebody's swinging on a tree, it's usually by way of insult. And people say some very funny, very entertaining, um, hurtful things to people who are swinging on a tree. And but Leggett does it differently. Leggett is the one crew that has a very, very different style. Leggett just says the most flattering, kind things. They're just so generous to the people who are cutting on trees. You're doing a great job. Um, so great. You're wonderful. Blah blah blah. Um, which is a very different style. If you've come from anywhere else in the woods, Leggett cutting on a tree is very, very different. And here they are saying very nice things about um, their non-reg red pot who's come over to visit. Um, Now this is if I'm getting this correct, I believe this is the younger sister of one of Leggett's um, chairs, one of their leaders. I believe it's the younger sister. Could be wrong. Um, I'm almost certain of it. In any event, she was swinging on this tree, and she came up, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. Um, she she is of a smaller frame, and so she grabbed this Fiskars, and I was expecting, hard swings as you would expect from anybody else, but I wasn't expecting a Paul Bunyan experience, is what I'm getting at. And she just started laying it down. It was very intense, and it was using a Fiskars. And while I generally um, do try and just observe and maybe tell a couple, good bull stories or whatever, I did I did say, you know what, let's let's see what she can do with an axe rather than the Fiskars. And she picked it up and it was heavy, and she acknowledged that it was heavy. She said that it was heavy, and it was a bigger axe than what she was swinging with. But then she proceeded to continue to hammer the hell out of this tree, and I just couldn't stop smiling. She absolutely wrecked shop, and I was so motivated, and I hope that I ended up getting one that captured the motivation. She was a very intense uh, swinger of this axe, and I was just as motivating as hell. And again, I have a soft spot for Leggett, that being my daughter's adopted dorm, her adopted crew. She loves her Leggett ladies, and so this was motivating. Good bull, and I know it must have busted the heck out of her hands. It's not that it's a harder to swing an axe with a wooden handle than it is those nice comfortable Fiskars, but she did a damn good job. And I think we got a couple in there. And again, I'm going to go back and review and make sure that I got that right. Now, here we are starting the back wedge on this one. Um, there's going to be a big jump here um, at some point. Not quite yet, but there will be a big jump in this tree because at a certain point I stopped paying attention to taking photos to it of it so much. And this was another tree that was again very, very well balanced. There was wind in play, and so at a certain point I kind of stopped taking photos for a minute and focused on um, uh, that tree and everybody around it. So sometimes I do uh, again stop being just an observer. Uh, Here, one of the brown pots was given a pixie stick, and what another one of the ways that Leggett does motivation that other people don't is they carry around candy. And up until, geez, this year, I think this is the first year that the law has been in effect, and birthdays and the way all those things worked out. But for so many years, there was a tobacco fish who would carry around tobacco for his crew, and if anybody wanted some, they would holler, and this individual would bring tobacco and to whoever was asking for it. Um, and most of the crews had that, but now with the new tobacco laws in Texas, um, that's just not going to happen for so many people not being 21. So that's not there anymore. But it was always funny because Leggett had somebody that carried around candy. So while you have somebody yelling for tobacco over in Leggett, they got somebody carrying around a bag vest full of candy. And so that's just again another one of the ways that they motivate. That's very different. And so they gave one of the brown pots some candy, and it's hard to tell from here. I tried to get it, but he he sniffed it with a straw because brown pots are brown pots. But in any event, we're back to that tree again. This is another one of the chairs, and then and throughout, Leggett's doing their motivation. Great job. You're wonderful. Can we be best friends? All this kind of stuff. They're so nice. Um, and I think it was about. I think this was the last person that I was able to actually focus on getting pictures of before I had to start looking at that tree fall. And maybe there's one or two more. I tried to get in here and get a better angle, but not get directly in front of the tree. Leggett had a good crew out on this day. They had a very good crew out. Leggett was one of the crews that was impacted at the beginning from the quarantine protocols, the isolation protocols, and everything that Bonfire adopted, which have been incredibly effective. I've been so impressed with how much control Bonfire has had over their situation, how they've been able to keep everybody safe and um, keep everybody where uh, there's the balance between how available do you make the bonfire experience for everybody, and how safe do you keep everybody. And they've actually erred on the side of let's be safe and healthy, which Bonfire is a retention and growth organization. That's an imperative. Year after year, you have to grow, and they've been so good about being disciplined with um, with any suspected possible uh, contact situations with COVID, and it has been hard. It's been a real challenge to not just the entire organization, but every individual group within it. And Leggett was one of the first groups that really had to set an example of, all right, so there was a potential contact, and we're going to go into isolation for 2 weeks, and we're going to come back out here while everybody else has been continuing to work, and we're going to jump back out, and we're going to get right back in it and catch up with everybody else. And they really set a great example on that, and I've just been really impressed um, with what they've done. Set a great example for the entire organization. Um, so this was after a bit of looking away, or not looking away, but not taking photos and focusing on this tree and its lean, and what its intentions were. And we can see by the time I've jumped back into shooting this tree, um, it is starting to go where it's supposed to go, and where it was intended, towards the front wedge. Always towards the front wedge is where you want it, and they finally got it to go. So I believe this was her first. This was her first tree. Um, and as I said, I always love when I can be around for somebody's first tree, and uh, a lot of motivation, enthusiasm there. One of the things that Leggett does again when they kill a tree is they empty out a pixie stick on the table. The table's the flat part of the wedge, and they lick the pixie stick, eat the pixie stick off the table. Um, and I just missed. I was so frustrated. I just missed. They do the Leggett ladies sign with their hands, which again my daughter has to show me all the time, so I'm very familiar with it. But they do the Leggett ladies sign for a little photo, and I missed it, and I was so frustrated. And then, fortunately, as if she was reading my mind, somebody else jumped in and said, "Hey, let's do another one." And so I got that, which was actually even a better angle than the one that I had missed before. So, uh, whoever that was, thank you for asking for a photo, because that's exactly what I needed. Now we're back in Heartwoods. Um, they're calling a hike here on this same log that we watched them take down with a wedge earlier. So they're hiking that back, and again I came in right at the end of that. On my way out of the Heartwoods, caught them swinging on a tree. They were split up into a few groups, and so I caught them on my way out. Here they are, uh, standing around, work on that. Another of the um, junior red pots in their lonesome walk through the woods. I One of the green pots heard me say um, on one of our streams, and I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to look through my messages right now. But she heard me say, I wonder how many miles the junior red pots walk. I remember myself walking all the time, constantly, nonstop, uh, never, never, ever, ever stopping, just constantly walking or running or jogging or walking with a purpose all day. But back when I was doing it, you didn't have fitness trackers and all that stuff, or a GPS you could keep in your pocket. And now they do, and I've always thought, man, I wonder how many miles they walk. And I sure would like to put a collar on one and see how many. And I found it. Here's the message. Okay. So she had heard me mention, I wonder how long they walk. And she messaged me that one of them had actually been tracking themselves on the day that I was saying, I wonder how long they walk. And on that one day, that one junior red pot had walked 17 miles. 17 miles in one day. That's amazing. That's fantastic. And then you consider that these woods are actually tighter. They're closer together than um, than than woods in the past. And you can make the rounds on the entire woods and catch everybody, uh, every 15 to 20 minutes in this circuit, and so have time to grab a water or something like that, or you find ways. You get very clever as a junior red pot. You find ways to, I have to stop and talk to this person, or I have to stop and check this situation out, or I have to stop and do something with the tractor or whatever. And so you find ways to give yourself a rest. But with these woods now uh, closer together, um, when they're farther apart, you don't have that time to stop, because when you make one lap, it might have taken you an hour to make that entire lap, and you can't stop and wait another 30 minutes before you get back and check back in on a set of woods. So your opportunities to stop and take a break are toast. But now that it's so close, they have a little bit more time. And even then, 17 miles in these tight, compact woods, that's brilliant. That's so great. There's a reason why junior red pots get so lean. Um, I, I look back fondly on my years building and and leading Bonfire. I look back fondly on the physical condition that I was in. I miss those days. But yeah, that's a lot of damn walking. So this is the core woods that we were at the previous, not last week. Remember, I wasn't in the woods last week, on the 26th and 27th. So the last we saw these woods were on the 19th and 20th, I believe. And some of the last shots that I took on the 19th and 20th were from these woods. These are the woods that I've said from the very beginning had such great light, and that I enjoyed shooting in these woods so much, and I would almost beeline back to these woods every morning because of their light. Well, that beautiful, subtle, soft, glowing light is almost gone back here because this entire thing is clear. This was a thick, dense patch of overgrown, unnatural woods. This was many years before people got here and started putting fires out. This was part of a prairie. This was grass, and there was nothing else. But over the years, this has turned into a dense thicket, and Bonfire came and cleared it back out and turned it into something that was closer to what it was supposed to be. And you see, this is now wide open. Clearly, a lot of work being done. Again, not a photo that I took with intent to use, but I was struck and impressed by how open this had become. So I took this almost as just a note. This is on the fringes of that open space. This would have been, at the beginning of cut, this would have been 60, 70, 80 yards at least deep into the woods and to the thick woods. And you see the pungies here, the yopon and small brush that's been cut to the ground. This was all thick and dense with brush. So this would have been 50, 60, 70, 80 or more yards deep into the thick, dense underbrush. And now this is on the very, very edge of the woods, is how far they've worked into it. We've got on the one hand here a crew chief monitoring a wedge, and then deep in the background I caught a yellow pot working on another. And what I was trying to get here was that I liked the way the light was hitting the person swinging on the tree versus the yellow pot kind of over here in the darkness a little bit. I opened it up a little bit more, the exposure, and I'm not as happy with this one as I was with the first one we looked at. So we're going to keep that first one. Turned back around, and we're back to the crew chief. You could see where the overexposure would be happening here. To have gone from this shooting into the darkness here, that exposure just wasn't corrected. That's on me. That wasn't great. I try and catch this pot every year because because of these names that I know on the bottom there. Marietta Morito, fish buddy of mine, Mary Bridges, is a contemporary of mine. And so I like to now Stagner. So I like to get there. I'd like to get that pot and shoot them a picture, even if I don't use it. I'd like to get it. But I did actually take and try and get a shot that I could also use in addition to sending to them, and to have their pot, my friends, my buddies' pot, presented in a context of work, not just the back of the pot with their names on it, but something that illustrates that this pot is in charge of and governing work. That's what I'm going for here. This pot is monitoring somebody's conduct and responsible for executing a task. But there was also this one that kind of came together right before I walked away, which was the back of the pot tells you who's in charge, but over here you see what they're in charge of, and that is the Neely Hall Angels. So I'm going to mark both of those, and I probably won't use both. Maybe I will. I don't know. But I know at least one, if not both of them, I'm going to forward to my buddies. Here is the, you always got to take a note of a truck pot in the woods swinging an axe. Always gotta get that. And we're gonna see more of the truck pot on the next day's photos, which I hope that we will get to today. Let me check the time here. We're gonna try and get to that today. Of course, I don't know. It has been an hour. Has it been an hour? Hour and a half already? It's been a spell. Um, we might get to that today. It might be tomorrow. But I did. Um, Load has been something that another one of those crews that was uh, uh, forced to because of protocols. Um, Load was Walton Hall was kind of limited in their ability to participate for a couple weeks, and so we haven't seen a lot of photos from Load. And this what we're looking at now is the 3rd, October 3rd. October 4th, I spent the entire day at Load. Um, that was the first real day of Load. They had a day of Load at the very beginning. But that was just kind of a warm up and teaching everybody how to load, and that's a very particular process. It is one of the most intense jobs at Bonfire, requiring the most discipline and the most attention paid to conduct, and um, uh, it takes a lot to get into the groove of load, and so Uh, they did that for 1 week. They were isolated for 2 weeks, and then uh, last week on the 4th, they came back. Actually, the week before they came back and did a little bit of loading, but now you're almost back to having your first load. You're teaching everybody again because it's been so long off. So last week on October 4th was what I would consider the first real day of load of the year, and so I spent the entire day there. Get them caught up. But this is that's just that's what's coming. Here we are, obviously still in Neely Woods. They're calling a log here. This here's we see the name here, Worth. This is a Bonfire family. Um, the Worths going way back. So um, I believe Cameron Worth. Yeah, I mean he's still coming out. Um, so you've got the senior Worth who was a 96, 95, 94, 96, something, who became a red pot. His boys participated in Neely, and uh, I believe it was his eldest son became Neely's first yellow pot. Neely never had a yellow pot until then, and then the younger son became a crew chief for Neely, and we see the name there. When when you wear when you get a pot, on that pot is the names of everybody who had that pot before you. And it's just kind of a reminder that you're inheriting something that somebody else invested in. And so, that's what you see the names on the back of the pot. It's a historical record. It's a matter of motivation. It's a tribute and a thank you to the people who came before you and made this opportunity for you possible. But anyway, we're calling this log here. Um, we're seeing more of this now than we did at the very beginning, as people are, first of all, people are able to maintain more distance, uh, avoiding having to make shoulder to shoulder, front to back contact. People are getting stronger, and so they can get underneath the log with space between them. so that they're not physically rubbing against each other. Um, so we are seeing more of the moving of logs, which is something that I always love to see and capture. We haven't seen that for the first 4 weeks. We're starting to see a little bit more of it. But then too, they're coming in closer contact with each other as they bump into each other in the hallways of their dorms that they live in. But that is it for the woods for the third. I did go out and visit Stack Site on the third. I had heard that they were already digging the trenches and the light pole holes, and I was able to confirm that. This is someone from Walton. Saturday was their day at Stack Site, so this is someone from Walton digging a trench. There's wire that's going to be buried here. Wire isn't buried very deep because it's just ripped out of the ground at the end of the year anyway, because the whole geometry of Stack shifts every year. It moves 10 feet south, 10 feet west, or 10 feet, yeah, south, west, southeast. It moves. And so when center pole moves, the window sticks move, and the perimeter poles move, and the light poles move. And so you're not going to be burying wire, um, 24 inches deep or whatever. You're running just enough wire to keep the lights working, um, and you bury it to this depth, and then you rip it the heck out of the ground. And so that's what he's doing. He's digging the trench to get the wire down. This is typically something that doesn't happen until later, and they've had the foresight to, while they have sunlight, while they have, good weather and healthy crews and a full complement of all the people, let's get Stack Site squared away. Let's get the light poles in the ground. Let's get the wire in the ground. Let's take our time on getting the wiring right. Let's get everything done here that we can, so that when we start Stack, and it starts getting colder, and we've got Texas flu season coming, and we've got all these other factors that are down the way, and who knows what's going to happen with all these other things in a month or two. So let's get out ahead of it. Let's get our infrastructure right. Let's get our site right. Let's make it so that we can make responsible decisions without having to rush or feel pressured. And that's what getting Stack Site ready is all about. And again, just add it to the list of things that I'm just so impressed with this year. Here's Lechner. I think Lechner made the most or close to the most progress on their hole on this day. I think they got down 4 feet and 4 inches is what someone said. Obviously, they're not 4 feet 4 inches at this point, but you're digging these. These are going to be for the light poles. In front of every light pole is a perimeter pole. Perimeter poles are what the ropes tie to center pole with. So there's ropes that go to center pole or from center pole down to the perimeter poles. And those poles are at an angle in front of what will be here, which is the light poles. And the perimeter poles mark your perimeter. The light poles are where the lights go. Here's the Lechner Chiefs pot. I shot that. I like the Lechner Chiefs pot. They tell it like it is. Here's a pelt. They're digging a trench as well. So there's 4 different there's 4 different poles. Oh, and I see somebody here in the comments said east. So it's moving east. I don't think anybody could understand how horrible I am with cardinal directions. It moves away from the Como shack. So it's moving east. Thank you. Um, Here's a pelt working on a trench going this way. So you've got 4 poles. You got 4 sets of wire that are running out to the 4 different poles. So you're going to be digging a few trenches. and and we've looked at and talked about different ways to send the wires out, and is there a way you could send them out permanently, and just with the movement every year, it's just not possible. And so you just got to redig the trenches every year. But it's like everything else at Bonfire. Um, if it's easy to do, then you're probably doing it wrong, at least by Bonfire standards. Um, Here's a pelt. The rest of the crew working their hole. So I did want to get, and I feel like I got it. This shot somebody in their hole digging that. A few of the pelt pots stacked up. And this is another angle, and I actually feel like, I feel better about this. So here's another angle of him getting into that hole, and what I was trying to get here is he wasn't playing around. When there he is, he would swing that pickaxe from all the way up, all the way down till he was almost falling in the hole. So more trenching here from one light pole to the next. I believe, who's that back there? This is OC back there at their light pole. And I finished up at the core light pole. Now the core light pole, um, um, the core light pole, after the fact, I heard that the core did not dig as big a hole as other people dug. And, a sad day or whatever. But realistically, the core is in a bit of a pickle with this light pole that they have, because as the whole geometry moves farther to the east, that's what we said, as it moves farther to the east, the whole geometry is moving farther and farther on top of where the core digs their massive fire pits every year. They dig these big, beautiful fire pits, and so you've already got this clay, um, this hard dirt and clay, and then these big fire pits, and they get, they do get muddy, and they accumulate water in the trenches, and then all the ash and everything. So basically, this core corner that they get stuck having to dig every year that they get a perimeter pole, or here on this year where they've got to dig a light pole, they're digging into years of accumulated hard packed concrete. It's practically concrete in some places. So don't envy the core, and it's completely understandable why. I think by the end of the day, their hole might have been 2 feet something. Um, so I got a couple of them in their futile attempt at digging out that hole. So in any event, so that's the end of the third. Let's go ahead and just at least get started on the fourth. We're more than halfway through the weekend. This is it's insanely underexposed, and by the time I fixed the exposure on it, I missed what was going on, which was all these cars lined up. But maybe, I don't know, maybe something like that. One of the junior red pots walking out to his buddies. So this was the day, as I was describing earlier towards the end of the previous day. I spent the entire day at load, and I think actually I think I am going to come back tomorrow and make. We've been at this for an hour and a half, which is on par for how much time we're spending per day. Um, I think we're going to look at a fuel load. Well, yeah, executive decision. We're going to look at a fuel load, and then we're going to come back tomorrow and look at everything. But I even shot the other crews going into the woods from load site. It's just so motivating to be back at load site, a load site that's actually humans, not tractors, are loading logs. Um, I was so motivated for that. I did not leave load site until it was time to go home. Um, what made it even more motivating is that some freshmen from Squadron 17 were out and loading again. And Squadron 17 was one of the outfits that loaded. They were the last core outfit that loaded. Um, they were loading in 1999, and Squadron 17 is, uh, they're a badass outfit, and they have a lot of history of being badass and motivated, which is what you have to be to load trucks. Every single log that comes down in normal years, when there's not isolation and quarantine and all these things. In normal years, every single log that goes on stack has been loaded by hand and thrown onto a truck, and that wears. That's a it is a particular and different kind of effort than cutting down trees. And it's a lot, and it's a lot of exposure in the sun, and it's long hot days, and it's uh, bloody shoulders, and oh man, load. I love load so much. And Squadron 17 was an outstanding badass load outfit. And for some time after Bonfire started again after 99, in 2002 there wasn't a load, but there were loads again in 2003 and 2004. Um, in those years, Squadron 17 was out, and they came out and they did outstanding work. Um, and then, as happens with core outfits, and as happens with non-rig crews and everybody, there's ups and downs. And there was a period where uh, Squadron 17 was still kicking ass in their way, but they weren't coming out to Bonfire a whole lot. And here in the last few years, Squadron 17 has been coming out, and they've slowly, steadily been getting back into it, and they spend their time in the last place that they spent their time. Um, 99, 2003, 2004, um, loading logs onto trucks, which is just it's so outstanding to see um, that motivation is still there, and that connection to load and to the non-reg load dorm is there. Um, Squadron 17 was as good as brothers with Walton. Um, there was and again, you see it almost immediately pick right back up. There was this camaraderie that was built on load. It wasn't the fact that half of the people were non-regs and this other group was in the Corps of Cadets. The fact that different sides of campus, all of that disappeared. Load is what brought people together in the same way that Bonfire brings people together from so many different places. And um, load was just a really boiled down essential look at that. This Squadron 17 on one hand and Walton on the other. So that's just me getting super motivated for Squadron 17 being out. Now, this truck we see here in the back is already partially loaded, and this was from the previous week or the previous night, maybe. I don't know. But this was mech loaded, so loaded with a machine, mechanically loaded which is what we've had to see for the previous 4 or 5 weeks up to this point. And so now we're going to get to see the difference of actually loading a log by hand. And so here is your um, truck red pot. That's the red pot who is in charge of the truck and getting all the logs, conveying all the logs to stack site from cut. This is your load pot. That is the individual who is in charge of load from the truck. And here's that moment. I think this is the first. Again, there was load the week before. There was a load that happened out of the thing, but this is a load with, I think there was twice as many people out this weekend as there had been the week before. You had Squadron 17 involved that hadn't been in the week before. And then you also had this entire group that was trained up and motivated and ready. And so this was, arguably one of the first logs of a fully motivated and fully trained up dorm. And so this look you see here, this is badass. This is these individuals on this truck are about to have a log thrown at them, and then you catch it with your hands and you push it down where it belongs. So we're gonna what we're gonna do. It's 11:30 already. I think we've been at this for almost 2 hours. We're getting pretty close to that. So we're gonna jump back on tomorrow, and we're gonna look at an entire day of load, the entire day spin at load site. And I can't tell you personally how motivated I am for that, because I have missed it so much for this entire year. Here we are, 5 weeks in, and we've finally got, between Bonfire's very impressive, very effective, very admirable protocols, and everything else that has been in place that has been keeping the students safe, and everything that the students have worked through to continue to be safe, and to also stay motivated, and everything that's fallen into place. Here we are, and we finally get to watch load. So I'm going to give that an entire day. The same way I took the entire day taking photos of nothing but that. And we're going to do that tomorrow, hopefully, because the day after tomorrow is Friday, and I'm going to be resting up on Friday to go back into the woods on Saturday. So we're going to shoot for tomorrow about the same time, 9:30, and we'll cull through these photos of load, and we'll get motivated for another weekend of load to follow, and of cut and work on stack site, and so many other things that Bonfire's got going this year. They're doing such an outstanding job. It has been very different. It has been unlike anything that I have seen in my entire time of doing it, watching it, and photographing it. So really outstanding stuff. I hope to see all of y'all again tomorrow. Follow on Twitter at Dion C Gallery, Facebook Dion C Gallery. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Your subscription helps. Just subscribing, it's free. Just hit the subscribe button. Like this video, share with your buddies. Let everybody know. Tomorrow we're going to look at load. Dion-C, Dion-C .me is the website with all of the photos that have been fully developed and processed and posted on the web to motivate everybody in the world with Aggie Bonfire. And of course, follow Student Bonfire at Student Bonfire on Twitter, Student Bonfire on Facebook, and studentbonfire.com is that website. So thank you very much. Everybody stay well, stay motivated, build the hell out of Bonfire. Giga Maggies.